Hello there, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for joining our World News program live here from Algiers on All 24 News with me, Krifa Zachary. Today's headlines. 50 civilians were evacuated thanks to a new convoy on Friday from the huge Azovstal factory. Russia performed final rehearsals on Saturday before the traditional military parade on May 9. North Korea has fired a suspected submarine-launched ballistic missile. New clashes erupted between Palestinians and Zionist forces during the raid. And finally in our news, after prolonged protest and general strike, closed schools, businesses and transport services. And we kick it off with this breaking news from Algeria. Algeria's ambassador to Italy, Abdelkarim Touhriya, said that Algeria is ready to cut off natural gas supplies to Spain if the kingdom does not respect the agreements between the two countries. Touhriya said in an interview with the Italian news agency that Algeria will stop supplies if Spain re-exports gas to another country. The ambassador recalled the official statement issued by Algeria, in which it confirmed that it would not fulfill its obligations if Spain exports gas to other countries. Moving on now, 50 civilians were evacuated thanks to a new convoy on Friday from the huge Azovstal factory, the last pocket of resistance of Ukrainian forces in Mariupol, a port city besieged by Russian troops. Earlier Friday, the Azov regiment accused Moscow troops of having targeted one of its cars, taking part in the operation to evacuate civilians, killing a soldier. Russia performed final rehearsals on Saturday before the traditional military parade on May 9th in Moscow, celebrating the victory over Nazi Germany, which will be the occasion for a show of force in the middle of the struggling Ukraine campaign. In recent years, President Vladimir Putin has used this parade to show off the might of his army, sometimes unveiling new state-of-the-art weapons. And this edition should be no exception to the rule. In a video conference call organized by the Chatham House think tank in London, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said he had invited German Chancellor Olaf Scholz to Kiev for ceremonies commemorating the defeat of Nazi Germany on May 9th.
I think Scholz has to come. I invite him, and I have done so several times, to come to Ukraine. The most powerful and intelligent political step is to meet May 9 in Kiev. Sometimes in history we have to make certain moves for unity, even if there is a certain coldness in the specific relationships.
The UN Security Council is meeting after approving an unanimous statement, its first since the Russian invasion of Ukraine on February 24th, giving strong support to the organization's Secretary General in the search for a peaceful solution to this conflict.
Norway and Mexico have initiated a presidential statement from the Security Council that has been scheduled for adoption this afternoon, and which we now did right now. It is important that the UN Secretary General has the full backing of the Security Council for his effort towards a peaceful solution to the war in Ukraine.
Pentagon spokesman John Kirby says the United States has no information to corroborate reports that Ukraine hit the Russian warship Admiral Makarov in the Black Sea. During briefing, Mr. Kirby also touched on intelligence sharing with Ukraine, insisting that they are the ones who ultimately decide what they are going to do with that information.
Yeah, we've seen the reports about this second. I think they're saying the reporting out there, at least in social media, was a Russian frigate. We've been looking at this all day, and we have no information to corroborate those reports. I would just go back to what I've said before. We try to provide them useful and relevant, timely intelligence so that they can better defend themselves. But ultimately, they make the decision about what they're going to do with that information, if anything.
In his video evening speech, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said that the European Union is preparing for the new sixth wave of sanctions against Russia. Let's have a listen.
We are coordinating our efforts to increase pressure on the Russian Federation, and this is especially important now that the European Union is preparing the new sixth package of sanctions against Russia.
US President Joe Biden has announced another package of military assistance for Ukraine. The latest package is for $150 million worth of equipment, including artillery munition, radars, and others. The new security assistance package follows the US President's $33 billion proposal last week to Congress to support Ukraine. In the same context, Joe Biden said his administration has nearly exhausted funding that can be used for security assurance and called on Congress to approve his request for additional money for Ukraine. Worries are on the rise about the fallout of the Sofia heating plant from the shutdown of Russian gas supplies to Bulgaria, since Moscow decided to punish the country for refusing to pay for its imports in rubles. Hossein Barkan reports.
Bulgaria, with its interlocking network of pipelines transporting large quantities of Russian gas, has been unable to obtain supplies since Moscow's ruble payment decision. Alexanderov, director of the Sofia heating plant, said that if the supply of the company, which receives almost 40% of all the gas in the country, has been interrupted, it could not continue to operate for more than 24 hours.
It was certainly not good news, the interruption of supply by the Russian company Gazprom. Even though we had expected it and had done a lot of legwork to prepare to switch to another fuel authorized by the government, we will not be able to continue to operate for more than 24 hours in the event of a complete cut in the gas supply.
The Bulgarian government sought to reassure, stressing that there are other options to secure the country's annual needs. However, companies are skeptical about this, fearing supply shortages and price hikes in a country considered the poorest in the European Union and facing record inflation.
No, the supply we currently receive has not diminished, and the pressure that is maintained in the system perfectly meets the needs. Currently, our gas consumption is 3.5 times lower than in the winter months, and I think we have enough time to find a solution with the government and Bulgar gas by the time winter arrives in order to find a reliable supplier for the next winter season.
The Sofia-based Center for Studies of Democracy considered Gazprom's decision a unique opportunity to finally escape Russia's grip in the energy field. However, the process cannot take place overnight, and the expert warned, in particular, of Russian maneuver to move behind the scenes to replace the Bulgarian national company with other, less expensive intermediaries, citing in particular the Hungarian MET company close to Gazprom, which negotiated the new supplies.
President Joe Biden demanded on Friday that Congress pass the Bipartisan Innovation Act, a multi-billion-dollar investment in the United States semiconductor industry that both Republicans and Democrats claim will help insulate the country from future supply chain disruptions in Asia and combat inflation.
Right now, Congress is considering a Bipartisan Innovation Act. That's what it's called. That's going to make generational investments in American innovation and manufacturing. Now look, if we're going to compete for the jobs of the future, we need to level the playing field with our competitors. The bill does that. So every Republican, Democratic member of Congress, most of us agree on this. Pass the damn bill and send it to me. If we do, it's going to help bring down prices, bring home jobs, empower America's manufacturing comeback.
100 defenders of the right to abortion mobilized in the Palace de la République in Paris to denounce the retreats that are preparing in the United States. Following the revelations of the American website Politico of a draft judgment, which, if adopted as is by the United States Supreme Court, would make it possible to annul the right to abortion enshrined in the 1973 judgment, Roe v. Wade.
This is a topic that concerns every woman, and men too. Everyone is concerned with abortion, and we would like to see the entire people mobilize. Unfortunately for our generation of feminists, even among activists, it is a right that is taken for granted, whereas it is not. As we see today, it is being questioned. So this gathering is also being held to awaken consciousness and to say that we must campaign on this subject as well as on others.
North Korea has fired a suspected submarine launched a ballistic missile, the 15th round of launches this year, according to South Korea's military. The short-range missile was launched Saturday afternoon from the Sinpo area toward the sea off North Korea's east coast, South Korea's Joint Chiefs of Staff said in an alert to reporters. Japan's Coast Guard also reported the launch, saying it appeared to be a ballistic missile that splashed down after about 15 minutes flight. In Northern Ireland, Sinn Féin is about to be the biggest political party at Stormont after symbolic breakthrough for Irish nationalism in the country's Assembly's election. So far, Sinn Féin has 18 Assembly members, while the Democratic Unionist Party has 13. These elections could make Northern Ireland one step closer to breaking away from the United Kingdom and uniting with the Republic of Ireland. Nabil Khazini reports.
Northern Ireland is on the brink of living a historic turning point. For the first time in the history of this nation of the United Kingdom, a nationalist party favourable to the reunification of Ireland, Sinn Féin, is well placed to come out on top in the parliamentary elections.
But we're asking for people today to come out in this election to vote for the future, to vote what's better for us all, and to vote for a First Minister for all, someone that will stand up for everybody, someone that will turn up on day one for everybody, someone that will invest in people in terms of getting them through the cost of living crisis, and someone that will work to fix the health service. That's what this election is about.
Michelle O'Neill, the Vice President of Sinn Féin, will be entitled to claim the post of Prime Minister of the Northern Irish Executive. Meanwhile, Jeffrey Donaldson, the leader of the Democratic Unionist Party, should be content with the post of Deputy Prime Minister under a system of powerful sharing inherited from the Peace Treaty of Good Friday, forcing Unionists and Nationalists to govern together.
The government need to act. Prime Minister and the Secretary of State both know that. And I've made my position clear. I will not enter an executive until that action is taken.
Voters rank the cost of living and health service as their chief concerns. They say that the main priority for politicians should be to help businesses get back on their feet.
It has to be health, education, cost of living are the three key large issues that are weighing not only in my mind but on the minds of the vast majority of the electorate at this time.
Well, run the government for a start, getting the money out to people that deserve money, roads fixed, health fixed. There's a load of things to be done, so we need it all sorted out and done.
The new legislators will meet next week to try to form an executive. If no one can be formed within 6 months, the administration will collapse, triggering a new election and more uncertainty in Northern Ireland.
Residents were stuck in their homes and submerged vehicles after flash floods caused by heavy rainfall, which hit the city of Spencer and other parts of West Virginia on Friday. Local officials have urged locals to be on the lookout for possible evacuation orders, as more probable storms from southwest are forecast to travel over West Virginia until early Saturday morning. Clashes erupted between Palestinians and Zionist forces during the raid, leaving 7 Palestinians wounded, according to the Palestinian Red Crescent. The Zionist forces said it destroyed a floor in the home where the assailant had lived, during which Palestinians reacted to this attack by throwing rocks and petrol bombs at the soldiers. 2 days before an election marked by disinformation campaigns and the rekindling of decades-long rivalry, Philippines presidential hopefuls prepared for last rallies on Saturday to galvanize support and win over hesitant voters. Up to 65 million Filipinos will vote to elect President Rodrigo Duterte's successor on Monday, as well as thousands of other positions ranging from legislators and governors to municipal mayors and councils or councillors. After prolonged protest and a general strike closed schools, businesses and transport services, Sri Lanka's President Gotabaya Rajapaksa declared a state of emergency on Friday. Miriam Zian has more details.
Police were deployed in the streets of the Sri Lankan capital on Saturday after the president declared a state of emergency. The state of emergency is the second in 5 weeks, granting extended powers to the security forces to deal with anti-government demonstrations that demand the president's resignation.
I see the declaration of emergency as an unsuccessful attempt to stop and suppress the emergence of new young leaders struggling to fight for freedom.
The country has been shaken by weeks of unrest, with protests at times turning violent as anger grows over the government's mismanagement of the country's economic crisis. Police dispersed students who were trying to enter the national parliament in the capital, Colombo, with tear gas and water cannon on Friday.
We demand that after today's strike, the government steps aside from all its responsibilities and allow for the country to move forward on new path.
A state of emergency was declared on the 1st of April after protesters tried to storm the private home of the head of state, but demonstrations have only escalated since then. The government has requested emergency funding from the International Monetary Fund since its financial reserves are nearly exhausted, and the island's nation's fate is heading to the unknown.
In Spain, 2 construction workers died on Friday in a strong explosion that occurred on a building under construction in the center of Madrid, which also left 17 injured, including 1 seriously wounded. Firefighters said that bodies of 2 workers were discovered in the rubble of the apartment blown up by the explosion after several hours of research. According to the local emergency services, the explosion took place around midday in a 4-story building located in the Salamanca district and was probably due to gas leak. A powerful explosion, which is expected to be caused by a gas leak, partially destroyed a historic luxury hotel in central Havana on Friday, left more than 22 people dead, including 1 child, and more than 50 injured. According to authorities, some of the wounded were in an extremely serious state. However, no foreigners have been reported to be among the victims. Only the workers and employees were inside preparing for its reopening. Mexico's president stated on Friday that the United States must participate to find an ultimate solution for the irregular migration issue in the region and help to fight poverty and violence. His statement came during his tour in Central American countries. Islam said with more.
Mexican President Andrés Manuel López Obrador said on Friday that the United States should contribute to a common solution to limit illegal immigration from Central American countries and help to fight poverty and violence. He also urged Guatemala, El Salvador and Honduras to participate in a joint effort in the development of a solution.
It is clear that the United States have a leading role in the migratory phenomenon and should therefore be responsible in making a solution by changing their migration policy and helping to combat the conditions that force millions of people to leave their homeland.
His statement came during his visit to El Salvador, where he met his Salvadorian counterpart Nayib Bukele, with whom he discussed migration and other great challenges facing the region.
We know that migration is an issue that our countries must address. The best thing to do is to keep our citizens in our countries. We don't want our productive and hard-working citizens to leave our countries in search of prosperity abroad. We want them to stay here.
The Mexican president began a diplomatic tour in Central America and Cuba on Thursday, in the countries from which migrant caravans regularly leave to the United States. Mr. López Obrador has also encouraged the United States to invest heavily in the economic development of Central America.
With this result, it is hoped that the US government and Senate will release the $4 billion that President Biden promised to invest in these programs so that they can be deployed in the 3 Central American countries.
In the last 3 weeks of April, the United States arrested more than 7,000 illegal migrants a day along the borders with Mexico, 5 times more than the average over the period 2014 and 2019. This flow is expected to rise from 23rd of May, when Washington must lift health restrictions on migration.
Colombian authorities, around 100 vehicles were damaged for burned in northern Colombia by members of the Gulf Clan cartel in retaliation for the extradition of the drug baron Otoniel to the United States. Diego Molano, the Colombian Minister of Defense, announced a democratic plan and the deployment of soldiers in the 23 municipalities to curb the violence.
Following the instructions of President Duque, we continue today the democratic plan, strengthening the presence of the security forces. Our soldiers are deployed mainly in the 23 municipalities where the Gulf Clan carried out revengeful actions for the extradition of Otoniel.
After 3 journalists were shot at Workers' Day celebration in Chile's capital, Santiago, hundreds took to the streets to support Francisca Sandoval, the injured journalist, and to demonstrate against local police. Sofian Kinturi reports.
3 journalists were injured last Sunday while celebrating Workers' Day in Chile's capital, Santiago. Doctor says Francisca Sandoval, who was shot in the head during the celebration, is in serious condition. Citizens from the capital and nearby states came to the streets to show their support for her and to protest against the local police and to continue to fight against this issue.
It's important to be here, to continue to highlight this fight and everything that happened on Sunday, which was regrettable. On Sunday, we really suffered. I would say that it was practically a trap. They were waiting for us, to attack us. The street dealers were ready. Before we arrived with the whole demonstration, the repression and the attack had already started.
Hundreds of journalists attended the rally, with the common purpose for their attendance being to continue with Francisca had started and the struggle that landed her in the hospital.
Francisca is our colleague. She is a friend, and the situation she is going through hurts me very much. But Francisca represents the struggle of all of us here, and the best way to contribute to the battle that Francisca is waging in the hospital. We are here to continue the fight. We will continue to go out in the streets, because they wanted to impose fear on us with what happened on Sunday. But we tell them that we are not afraid of them.
According to a tweet from the Ministry of Interior, a 3rd suspect has been captured, who is suspected of shooting Sandoval. CPG attempted to contact the Chilean investigative police for comment at the number posted on its website, but the call was not answered.
To football now. The English football team Chelsea announced today that the consortium led by Todd Bowley, co-owner of the Los Angeles Dodgers baseball team, is to acquire the club in a £4.25 billion bid. This represents the largest sum ever spent on a sports club. In a statement, Chelsea said the sale was expected to complete in late May. The takeover will require approval from the English football authorities and the UK government. Chelsea's previous owner, the Russian Roman Abramovich, put the club up for sale in March, days before it was targeted by British sanctions in the wake of Russia's special military operation in Ukraine, launched on February 24th. Well, that's it. But before we wrap it up, here's a reminder of our top stories. 50 civilians were evacuated thanks to a new convoy on Friday from the huge Azovstal factory. Russia performed final rehearsals on Saturday before the traditional military parade on May 9th. North Korea has fired a suspected submarine-launched ballistic missile. Clashes erupted between Palestinians and Zionist forces during the raid. And finally, watching our news, after prolonged protests and general strike closed schools, businesses, and transport services. Well, that's the end for our world news. Thank you for tuning into our channel, and bye for now.